Welcome to my channel. We hope you appreciate today's tale. I observed that my hands were clammy when I cautiously took hold of the door handle, nervously yanking the door open. I walked into an incredibly luminous, contemporary, and lively place. Advancing further, I heard a chair to my left screech against the tiled floor, sounding somewhat akin to nails on a chalkboard, only significantly louder. I glanced in that direction, saw a flash, and felt an extremely warm and weighty object crash into my chest. I staggered backward, yet managed to stay upright, attempting to comprehend the situation I had blundered into. I identified Harold Blake's stern visage above the muzzle of the firearm he aimed at my chest. The dimension of the muzzle made it evident that he was equipped with something much larger than the .22 caliber I had anticipated. He was shouting at me, but due to the ringing in my ears, I couldn't discern his words. However, I clearly interpreted his intentions. It was apparent he was utterly deranged. He lifted the gun slightly and took a step toward me, an unpleasant smirk crossing his face. Then it disappeared, not just the smirk, but his entire face. "Oh my God, Dave, you've been shot," Les Williams cried out, swiftly coming over and gently easing me into a comfortable seat. Les was my wife's cousin's spouse, served as a detective locally, and was a good person. Now I appreciated him even more as Harold Blake lay on the floor, eyes wide yet unseeing. Les was a hefty man, and he delivered a forceful right hook to Blake's repulsive face. Les began grabbing paper towels and pressing them against my chest, yelling for the bartender to dial for an ambulance. I felt extremely dizzy. My rear began sliding off the wooden chair. The man seated next to Les hoisted me up by my arms and carefully lowered me to the ground. I heard Les command another man, "Better call that damn ambulance fast, or they'll take Dave straight to the morgue. Thanks for the help," I managed to utter before blacking out. At some point, I began to regain consciousness. Recognizing the smells and noises of the hospital wasn't difficult. The lethargy was profound, and my chest ached as never before. I could hear voices. So I chose to keep my eyes closed for a bit longer and listen to their conversation. "Mom, who the heck is this guy?" Blake demanded my daughter Serena. "I understand he works at your firm, but why did he shoot Dad? Did you or Dad have issues with him? He's been pestering me ever since I attended that seminar in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago." Shannon, my beloved wife, replied. "That's hardly an explanation," Serena countered. "Why was he troubling you after the trip? You told me you had fun with Janice Long and the new lady from accounting. Why in the world did that miserable man shoot Dad? You're not disclosing everything, are you? Are you having an affair with that man? Are you being unfaithful to Dad? Tell me you're not involved with that pathetic wretch lying in bed listening." I genuinely hoped Serena meant Blake, not me. However, I wouldn't be shocked if Shannon asked Serena which exact wretch she meant. "Absolutely not," Shannon asserted. "Blake ended up at the seminar when Bill Lane's wife became so ill that Bill couldn't make it. Blake substituted for him. I didn't even realize he was in Vegas until I returned home. If you didn't know he was there, why did he start pestering you? What did he want? He wanted me to sleep with him. He attempted to blackmail me, and I refused to comply," Shannon explained. "Mum, your evasive responses are starting to irritate me. Everything you're telling me raises more questions to which I shouldn't have to drag answers out of you. Dad is lying in a hospital bed after they extracted a .38 caliber bullet from his chest. It narrowly missed his heart but nicked his lung. He was shot by your co-worker, who, as you now allege, was attempting to coerce you into sex, but you're not providing clear responses to all the questions that seem quite straightforward to me. Why, where, when, who, how, and what on earth? Mrs. Grant, my associate, and I would like to inquire about a few things regarding today's event. Could you please accompany us?" a confident female voice requested. "We need your statement to piece together what transpired during this exchange of gunfire. I hope the police will fare better than I have," Serena whispered quietly, as the sound of a door shutting reverberated. "Dad, please assure me everything will be fine. Mum and I would be at a loss without you." I cautiously opened one eye and noticed Serena sitting by herself, her face hidden in her hands as she seemed to restrain her tears. "I'll recuperate as soon as possible," I whispered, surprising and soothing Serena. "Dad, you're conscious. They told us you're out of danger and that all will be well. Mum and I were permitted to stay by your bed and wait until the anesthesia subsided. I promised to notify the nurse immediately once you awoke." With these words, Serena leapt up and exited the room, returning shortly with a middle-aged nurse who was smiling. She handed me some ice water to sip through a straw and swiftly checked me for any apparent complications. "I'll inform the doctor that you've awakened and are conversing, Mr. Grant. It's encouraging to see you feeling better. You'll be heading home soon," she mentioned as she exited. "Can you recall what occurred?" Serena asked. "Are you experiencing much pain? Some jerk shot me." "It's excruciating," I responded. "My question to you, why did that jerk attempt to murder me?" "No one knows, Dad. The police are probing the issue. They're speaking with Mum at the moment," Serena explained. "Have you ever encountered Harold Blake before?" "Harold Blake?" I echoed. "I saw him once at your mum's work function." "I don't recall speaking to him." "Yet, he shot me." "He shot you in the chest with a .38 caliber pistol. The bullet missed your heart but grazed your lung. He was about to fire again, but fortunately, Les Williams was at the bar. He subdued Blake before he could shoot once more." "You're fortunate Les was there." "Yeah, I'm darn lucky," I sarcastically affirmed. "Was your mum distressed when she learned I'd been shot? Are you joking?" "She was heartbroken. I had to drive her here, and she wept the entire journey," Serena answered. "Why do you ask about this?" "You know Mum adores you. Is there something happening that I'm unaware of?" "It appears a lot is occurring that none of us are privy to," I retorted. "The evident question is, why did that fool try to kill me?" "The second and nearly as vital question is also clear. Does your mother have anything to do with why that man shot me?" "She insists he was trying to blackmail her into having sex with him," Serena stated. "She didn't mention that he had any leverage over her to make him." "Believe she'd comply. I don't need to remind you that if your mother is deceiving me, I'll leave her so quickly her head will spin." "I've been loyal throughout our marriage and won't tolerate your mother being unfaithful," I stated decisively. "You've always been open about your views on loyalty, Dad. Mum knows how you feel, and I don't think she'd ever betray you. You know how attractive Mum still is. She'd never be with a creep like Harold Blake, even if she did something unusual," Serena reassured. "If you're trying to cheer me up, you're not doing a good job," I replied. "Your mum might be attractive, but that doesn't mean she can be unfaithful if she finds some particularly impressive guy. That's not how marriage works." Serena quickly realized her blunder and attempted to rectify it. I didn't mean she'd be unfaithful with just anyone. I just meant that if she ever did, it would be with someone far superior to Harold Blake. That's all I meant," she clarified. "Just stop digging yourself deeper, Serena," I insisted. "Dad, you're awake," Shannon exclaimed from the doorway. "I was so worried about you then. Why would you be worried about me?" I queried. "Just one of your work colleagues shot me with a .38 caliber pistol. Nothing alarming about that, of course, depending on why he tried to kill me." Shannon was taken aback by my words. She halted her approach toward my bed and began to cry. "He shot you because I told him you would thrash him if he continued to harass me. He has several recordings where I am in compromising situations. He believed I'd rather sleep with him than allow him to show you those videos. Then I foolishly threatened him with a severe beating from you." "Dave, I didn't realize how deranged he was," she confessed. "He warned me that if you confronted him, he'd shoot you," Shannon revealed. "He claimed he was licensed to carry a firearm and would use it if you so much as glanced at him the wrong way." "He told you he had a .38 caliber. That's incredibly potent, especially within 10 feet, I pointedly clarified. Initially, he mentioned he had a Ruger .22 caliber. I mocked him, saying you'd stuff that puny gun down his throat if he dared confront you," Shannon admitted. "Clearly, he acquired the .38 caliber as soon as the waiting period ended. Let me get this straight. This lunatic tells you he'll shoot me with his .22 caliber if I approach him for any reason. This prompts you to tell him that his gun is too feeble to harm me. So he takes your advice seriously and procures a larger weapon. Why did you provoke him without informing me? Why did you suggest he get a bigger gun?" I growled. "The police just questioned me about the same issue," Shannon confessed. "I was trying to deter him by emphasizing how big and strong you are, hoping he'd back off. I never expected him to buy a bigger gun. You know I would never intentionally provoke someone to shoot you." "And yet that's exactly what you did," Mum Serena interjected. "You still haven't told us what incriminating videos he had and how he obtained them. What on earth did you do, Mum?" The new girl who joined us at the seminar was younger and far more uninhibited than Janice and me. It was scorching in Vegas. and she had friends who were members of a private club. She kept inviting us to join her at this club, one of its attractions being a stunning Olympic-sized pool. "I'm not going to probe further," Mom Serena stated, clearly overwhelmed. There's more to this story. It was a private club where members and guests were either nude or at least topless. It's embarrassing, but Janice and I decided to visit after our seminar. Initially, we were apprehensive, but after around 30 minutes, being topless among others felt natural. Unbeknownst to us, Harold Blake had an acquaintance at the club. Although there were strict rules against photography or filming, he blatantly violated them. He covertly recorded Janice and me topless. Upon returning from Vegas, he emailed me copies and threatened to distribute them to you, Mum, Dad, and anyone else whose addresses he could acquire. Janice informed me he did the same to her. He crafted the email to imply we had been intimate multiple times in Vegas, hoping it would recur. That's why I didn't show you. Dave. I feared you'd believe it was true. It's not. I would never be unfaithful to you. Shannon explained the circumstances in Vegas that led to my shooting. I was astounded by Shannon's recount of the events. Sweat began to bead on my forehead. "I'm sorry, but I must ask both of you to leave," a tall stranger announced as he entered the room. "I allowed you to stay with your husband and father, hoping he would awaken in a supportive environment. I didn't anticipate such stress. If his recovery progresses as I expect, you should be able to take him home in a day or two." Fortunately, the bullet took the path it did, stated Dr. Rains. "Understood," Serena replied, helping her mother toward the door. The individual, who was apparently a doctor, examined my wound, but I fell asleep before he could finish the examination. When I woke up next, there was a police officer and a man in plain clothes in the room. The officer nodded when he saw that I had opened my eyes. "Mr. Bell, I'm Officer Hastings, and this is Detective Allen. We would like to ask you a few questions about the events that led to your surgery. Are you feeling well enough to talk to us? We'll try to be brief." "Actually, I know very little, but I'll answer your questions as best as I can," I replied. "Perhaps it would be quicker if you just told us what happened," Detective Allen suggested. I recounted everything I remembered, from the moment I opened the door to the pub until I woke up in the hospital bed. "Did you have any interaction with Harold Blake before he shot you?" the detective asked. When I shook my head, he inquired, "Have you read the emails he sent to your wife? She told us that you're not savvy with computers and don't even know the password." This detective made it easier for me by throwing softballs at me. "Shannon is right. I'm not tech-savvy, and she never told me any of her passwords. Did he send her something via email indicating that he was planning to shoot me?" "I can't discuss what we've learned so far. We're just trying to piece together all the puzzle pieces," Allen replied, then asked a few more questions about how I interacted with Blake. I told him that I had seen him once at one of Shannon's company events and never spoke to him as far as I remember. Shannon never mentioned his name. They seemed satisfied and soon left me alone with my thoughts. I really messed everything up. It was obvious. Shannon said she never slept with that jerk, and I believed her. She rarely lied, especially about something serious, and she had tells that allowed me to understand if she was distorting the truth. She didn't show them when explaining to Serena and me that Blake wanted a piece of her. I should have found time to read all the new emails she received from that jerk before going to his favorite dive bar, expecting him to confront me with a .22 caliber pistol. A person can die from a shot from such a weapon, but the bullet must be very precisely aimed. I had already decided that Blake wasn't going to be surgically accurate and precise when formulating his imagined revenge. Shannon was my whole life after 20 years of marriage. I loved her more than I could ever imagine. When she returned from the trip to Vegas, she was acting somewhat strangely. It wasn't just one thing, but a combination of things. Over the years of work, I learned to hide various details from Shannon. The most significant of these was the fact that I wasn't as clueless with computers as she thought. I knew how to handle a laptop. I used it at work, although for some reason she never considered that possibility. I saw how she checked her email many years ago and memorized her password, which was the date of our anniversary. She had no clue about any of it. Since her unusual behavior worried me, I decided to log into her account for the first time. Soon enough, I discovered that Harold Blake had sent Shannon copies of several videos where she was topless by the pool, surrounded by a few other people. To say that this surprised me would be a significant understatement. Another thing that surprised me were Janice Long's surprisingly large and firm breasts, who would have thought. I was much less concerned about Shannon going topless in Las Vegas than about her sleeping with Blake. Judging by how he worded his emails, it seemed like Shannon had slept with him multiple times, and her responses were threats about what I would do to him if he didn't stop trying to blackmail her. Remembering these emails, it must be acknowledged that she never admitted to sleeping with him. She didn't even touch on that topic. I had been tracking Blake for almost the entire previous week. On his way home, he always stopped at one pub. In my defense, I was extremely disheartened by what I believed was Shannon cheating on me. I read in the emails that he possessed a concealed carry permit for a .22 caliber pistol, and that he would use it if I attempted to confront him in any way. I never saw any emails about him acquiring a larger gun. My revenge plan was very basic, too basic, as it turned out. I intended to accidentally enter the pub when he was there, stare at him until he became anxious and pointed his gun at me. If necessary, I would feign drawing my own weapon from my pocket to provoke a reaction. If he merely brandished the gun and threatened me, I would have him arrested and ensure he received the maximum sentence. If it appeared he was going to shoot, I planned to cover my face with my hands and duck to minimize the risk of being hit by stray bullets. Reflecting on it now, I realize my assumptions were severely flawed. The man actually had a .38 caliber. He didn't just wave the gun around or threaten, he simply shot me in the chest before I could even attempt to take cover. I was aware that a .22 caliber shot could be lethal, but it seemed less probable. However, there was no doubt about the lethality of a .38 caliber shot. The primary reason I thought the threat from Shannon's lover, or the possibility of being shot by him, was a strategic move was how it would impact Shannon. Her affair would become the cause of my suffering and potentially my death. I was convinced she still harbored love for me in her own way, even if she had been unfaithful. The burden of my hospitalization or demise would devastate her. I was certain that the truth about her affair would emerge during the investigation, and I would be seen as the poor, innocent husband who naively trusted his wife. The topless videos would somehow end up in the wrong hands and be shown to Shannon's friends and family. She might even face ostracism from her family, causing her severe distress. Shannon had strong relationships with her parents, siblings, and even with my family. Family was an incredibly important aspect of her life. Now, I had to contemplate how to extricate myself from this dilemma I had created. I needed to ensure Shannon didn't discover what a fool I was, how I believed she was having an affair with Blake, and how I concocted my half-baked plan just to make her and her lover suffer, even if it risked my own life. I always thought I was adept at solving problems, but recent events made me reconsider that belief. How could I avoid being portrayed as the biggest fool imaginable? How could I present the situation in a way that minimizes the damage? Shannon and Serena visited me in the afternoon. Serena was relieved that I would be discharged the next day, but Shannon was withdrawn and tearful. It seemed like my poorly thought-out plan had an effect. She was subdued. I pretended to fall asleep, and they cut their visit short. As they left, I began pondering how to amend the situation. I wasn't very surprised that Shannon went topless at a private club in Vegas for several reasons. One reason was that she was in excellent shape, maintained a nicely sized, firm bust, and understandably took pride in her appearance. Another reason was the influence from her friend Janice, who also possessed an impressive bust. Based on the videos I had watched numerous times, it was clear Janice wanted her attributes to be admired by onlookers. The main reason I wasn't taken aback was due to a conversation I overheard one hot Saturday morning when I came home early from work and found Shannon and Serena by the pool. It seemed like they were having a spontaneous poolside gathering. Serena's two closest friends, Beth and Amber, were there in skimpy bikinis, as well as Shannon's younger sister, Laura. Also present were a couple of neighbors, both women in their 30s. I decided to eavesdrop on the conversation before grabbing a small cooler of beer and joining the women. The topic of conversation turned out to be quite intriguing. They were discussing how delightful it would be to visit a beach far away where they could go topless without being recognized by relatives, friends, and colleagues. Serena and her two delightful friends talked the most about how enjoyable it would be and how it was an experience they would never forget. I was taken aback when Shannon and Laura joined in, talking about how intriguing it would be to act unlike the typical, dull suburban housewives. That conversation I overheard by the pool lingered in my mind as I drifted off to sleep. It seemed like Shannon might be somewhat of an exhibitionist. It made me ponder whether all women felt this way, or if it was only characteristic of women who had stunning figures, confidence, and the means to fulfill those desires. Serena and Shannon picked me up from the hospital to take me home. I was handed a list of prescriptions and guidelines that needed to be followed. I received instructions on diet and physical exercises for the upcoming period and promised to regularly visit my family doctor. Shannon assisted me into the house, where I was surprised to see most of our close friends and relatives. Everyone expressed their concern and wished me a quick recovery. I shook hands and greeted people until my energy started to wane. At that moment, I sank into my favorite armchair to rest and, reluctantly, I fell asleep. Upon waking, I briefly listened to the ongoing conversation, and what I heard ignited my anger. Essentially, Shannon was being criticized by both her and my family for her behavior in Las Vegas. It became apparent from the conversation that the videos had indeed been seen by most of our guests. Married women don't go around with bare breasts, especially in an unfamiliar place, lectured Shannon's father. You might as well get a tattoo on your forehead or on your backside or both, indicating that you're available and easy. Acting like this is just asking for trouble. Dave got shot because of you. Jack's right, my father chimed in as soon as Shannon's father paused. Decent women don't flaunt their breasts for anyone to see them. My granddaughter needs a good example to follow, not what her mother is showing on video. Being topless in front of a bunch of strangers is sending the wrong message. I'm very disappointed in you. Shannon just stood there, absorbing it all, tears streaming down her cheeks, trembling slightly, a reaction she showed when deeply saddened and under extreme stress. My heart broke seeing and hearing how my wife was being treated like an outcast, but what infuriated me the most was the harshness with which our own family was treating Shannon. Everyone here needs to shut up or get the hell out, I growled, rising to my feet and moving toward Shannon. Jack, whose house is this that you're standing in right now? I demanded an answer from my father-in-law. Well, it's your house, Dave Jack replied, his confusion evident. Wrong answer, you idiot, I roared. This house belongs to your daughter, who happens to be my wife, and to me. You're in Shannon's damn house and calling her actions completely unacceptable. You have a few options. You can get out of our house and stay out. You can try your luck treating me like crap, or you can apologize to Shannon. I was just pointing out that her actions, Jack began. You're on thin ice, Jack. Preaching is not an option. Get the hell out right now, or apologize to your daughter. I cautioned him, son, he was just my father trying to mediate your next. Dad, I warned, no one in our house speaks ill of my wife or about her. What will you do, Jack? I was wrong, Shannon. Your husband loves you and he's right. This is your house, and I should respect you and defer to you. If I can't do that, then I shouldn't be here. I apologize. Shannon rushed to her father and embraced him, while her mother, Susan, hugged me tightly. That's how a man defends his wife. You're a good man. The groan I involuntarily let out when Susan pressed against my wound drew everyone's attention. Grandma, I think your breasts were putting too much pressure on Dad's chest, Serena remarked. Those girls have turned more than one man into jelly, Susan grumbled, as the chuckles were replaced by tension in the atmosphere. Shannon, I want to apologize before Dave kicks me out. I went too far. You've made my son happy and given us a beautiful granddaughter, my father said. It seems everyone got the wrong impression that I'm upset about Shannon letting her hair down in her top in Vegas. In reality, you would have never known about it if it weren't for that scumbag Harold Blake. I had an epiphany as both fathers attacked Shannon. Since I loved her deeply and understood her a bit better than a few weeks ago, I planned to make lemonade out of lemons. Shannon has a beautiful figure, and I challenge anyone who has seen the videos where she's topless to dispute this statement. We take pride in her figure. I believe most attractive women, like Shannon, are inclined towards exhibitionism. It's evident that Shannon has it. When she told me she was going to Vegas, I advised her to visit that club where she could go topless, and no one would know about it. It turns me on that men enjoy looking at my wife, as long as I'm the only man who appreciates these charms up close, personally and directly. If you want to criticize someone for Shannon having a good time in Vegas, try doing it with me. We make decisions together and base them on what makes us happy, not random friends and relatives. Shannon looked shocked as I said this. Serena grinned widely and glanced at her mum. Both women exchanged nods. Their skills of silent communication were well known in our family. Everyone else was still trying to digest my revelation. They looked at me, surprised, amused, and approvingly. Since the cat is out of the bag, you may know that Shannon and I are going on a 2-week vacation in August. We're going to the island of Cuckoo. The island is well known for its beaches, many of which require no clothing. We won't have any tan lines when we get back, I stated. If any of you have a problem with our life choices, express it now. Tell us why we are sick puppies and need help. I think it's a great idea, Dad. Mum will enjoy having her freedom with interested men observing her, and you'll be there for protection, Serena predicted. Thank you, Serena. It means a lot when our daughter understands and encourages our choices. I can't wait, Serena added. You promised that I could go on our next family vacation. You also told Beth and Amber that they could come with us if they paid for their airfare. We're going to have a great time. I was about to voice my opinion about Serena going to the beach topless. I immediately realized that if I voiced my concerns about my 19-year-old daughter going to the beach topless, I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world. I decided to support Serena, thinking about the private conversation I would have with her later. I was torn between possible scenarios. Beth and Amber topless was a vision I wanted to experience. However, Serena walking around with her breasts exposed worried me. I contemplated telling her that this trip should be a romantic getaway for me and Shannon. What I heard next made me glad I hadn't voiced that thought yet. Sis, are you okay if I join you? Asked Shannon's divorced and very well-built sister Laura. Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments. We'll see you on the Cheating Stories channel.